What's up, y'all? Yeah. I just answered my own question. What's up? Yes. Welcome. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. We have 4 sides to us. Today is the 22nd of April, 2025. It's actually Earth Day. Yeah, this is In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. Welcome. I welcomed you to our company as a whole and now to where you are specifically. This is a guitar. I'll keep you guessing. Does he actually know how to play guitar or does he not? All right. Well, we'll talk about it because that's 1/4 of our company. So let me get into the intro. We'll talk about all the 4 sides and then, we'll stop being so square-headed about things and get around to talking about the episode title, which is actually titled Being Driven Out Draws You Closer to Christ. Okay, episode 108 of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. That's where you're at right now. Dude. So, 4 sides to us as a whole, and the point is I can play guitar. Look at the way I'm sitting. I don't sit like this. I did it because, I can play guitar. Yeah, if you're an audio only, In the Image Clothing Company Podcast is available in video plus audio as another form you can view it in. But for the sake of speaking on some things, let's talk about something. This side of the company is where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things, all right? Bold. Stick around. We get that way. We've been that way. All right? Now, there's another 4th of us, which is the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. We address the human body's natural function. We come at it through the skeletal system, the foundation, right? Fat content changes, muscle mass changes. The skeletal system doesn't, other than just, growing from a child to full-grown adulthood. There's a neutral within every joint, and it has to be there. We live on an earth with gravity. There's a center line to the human being. The trachea, the sternum, the spine, the nose. The jaw is also in the center, and it naturally stabilizes the entire body. So we have to keep the body within things that are centered as well. Clothing, the thing placed on us, always. Highly probable that it's altering your physical being at this current moment of listening to this episode of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast, episode 108, titled Being Driven Out Draws You Closer to Christ. Because if you don't know how to be intentional about your clothing, designs nowadays are just coming from the factory, so imbalanced. And we talk about it. Free modifications, and we will have our clothing, In the Image Clothing Company clothing, available when we do, staying centered, fitting correct, made out of 100% natural materials, and those are the ways we allow, keyword, the human body to work. It don't do nothing besides what it does, brother. We can only allow it and let it be what it is. So there we go. Eating, standing, walking, sleeping, hydration. We talk about all the things that we do, bro, and those are those ones that we have talked about and will continue to if and when and where. So thank you. Goodbye. Just cut it. No, we have another 4th of us, which is me playing guitar sometimes, but other times it could be something slightly different. But what I do is address sizings and setups of guitar so we don't alter the hands that we're using to play them. The hands are essentially the shoulders of the human being, as the feet are essentially the hips. The body works, or it doesn't. So if it's working, it's as a whole, all together. And yeah, so this isn't the size or type of guitar that I play normally. I play nylon strings with a radius. The hands are round. And somewhere around half size. And that's not what this thing is by any means. It's my mom's, as I've said. Past episodes of In the Image Clothing Company Podcast. I'm grateful to use it. Yeah, seriously. One other fourth of us is in the Image Clothing Company dogs. And by all means, check it out. Me personally, Evan Strong, the founder of the four sides of In the Image Clothing Company as a whole, I will have standard poodles that I will be breeding purely. Purebred is how they will be, is what I'm saying. And yeah, that'll come when it does, and I'm so excited. But we have 3 videos on on In the Image Clothing Company dogs, which is the newest fourth of our company. But I made 3 videos today for it. So there's 4 videos there if you include the launch video that I made a few days ago from today's date back. And yeah, man, it's really great. We let dogs stay natural is our phrase for that side. It's our slogan, right? In the Image Clothing Company dogs. There's man-made materials and dog accessories, toys. Yeah, collars, leashes, harnesses, they're imbalanced and made out of those materials sometimes, right? So the dog's like a human being in a lot of ways. Really so similar. It has to stay centered as well with gravity pulling on it. And dehydrated dog food, man, kibble, right? There's a lot of stuff going on that's just not how dogs would ever be unless there was man-made things involved. Okay? So we do a lot of great stuff here, dude. Seriously. Expansive. Shout out to that brand. There's a brand of insulation called Great Stuff, and it's like this expanding foam insulation. Enchiladas, brother. Talk about it. All right. I'm not sure why, but I segued. So let me just roll on back to where I was and get back to talking about clothing. For everybody, it needs to sit in the same location. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, if you're tall or short, if you're skinny or fat, if you're from any part of the earth or any time period to ever be. It's the same thing because we're designed in the image of Jesus Christ, our living God, and the body has to just work, dude. Pants need to be entirely above the hips, so there's no restriction to the functionality of the pelvis. Slightly higher in the front than the rear for the waistband angle, because the core muscles in the front of our bodies have to do what all the muscles do to work, which is contract, and that means shorten. And that's how that's allowed to happen. And so here's some context that I've been placing in videos, and it's massively important. You can never have stretch within clothing and have your body work, because that's the opposite direction that muscles do work. So the tops that we wear, the seams on top of our shoulders need to be evenly behind the peak bones up here, because our shoulders only ever work behind our head. Okay, that's how we allow that to be the case. The edge seams of our shoulders should be right at the very edges because that's where the functionality of the joint is. And there you go, bro. There was no such thing as stretch in clothing until like just a few decades ago from today, so it's not normal. No opinion. Don't believe me or In the Image Clothing Company, but it's just what it is, dude. So your body's taking a beating if you're wearing things that don't let it work. I feel like I haven't beatboxed much on a podcast for a while. I really haven't beatboxed much on here for a bit, so there you go. There's a little bit of a musical number on the number 108 in the Image Clothing Company podcast episode, right? But yeah, there's a title to it, which is being driven out drives you closer to Christ. And I stuttered. There's not necessarily 2 words that need to be placed there that are the same, right? One after another being the same one. But it's really huge, man. Being driven out from things really draws you closer to Christ. And we'll get into it. But there's 2 things we call prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company. Conditional, there's not always ropes that we call shoelaces being placed onto our feet. And there's not always tags in our clothing. That's another new thing just a few decades back is when it became something to even happen. It wasn't something that did ever before then. I mean, I don't know about ever, right? But it became like a legal thing to happen just decades back from today's date. So Yeah. What happens is when we put a rope across the feet, well, there's only one way they're shaped. So we have to weave our laces the only way the human feet are shaped. In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique is what that is, meaning we don't own it, but we call it that so you can find it wherever you find us, right? In the Image Clothing Company, 5 words as a whole. And with that, though, we tie our shoes evenly as well, right? Over toward the center line of the human being because there is one. Otherwise, you potentially are rotating your entire body to the tip of your head and the tips of your fingers. If there's any imbalances in what you're doing with ropes on feet that oppose the center line of your body and grip arches inward to keep you vertical on an earth with an invisible force. Talk about Star Wars. Seriously, right? Star Wars is so metaphoric, but guess what? So is the truth of all things. God himself, he speaks in parables and metaphors and a lot of things that, right, as he says, these things will make sense to some and not to others. He who has ears to hear, to let him hear. But you got to kind of be open to things being a little bit different than what you might have initially thought. Talk about truth, man. All right, cool. That's what we do here. So, secondly, we remove all tags, right? The other prerequisite we have, tags are causing a gap, man, and the body only works how it does. There's only one neutral position for things like the scapulas, which are our shoulder blades to sit in behind our head. And if you place a tag in the rear of a collar or anywhere in clothing, it's not letting the body work, dude. Even within shoes, right? Musculature just can't activate against something slippery or just whatever it could be, because sometimes it's not only slippery, but maybe grippy or excessively scratchy, right? So removing all tags is a must. It has to be done. All right? I'm going to tell you how it is, dude. So sit there and listen. Or stand up and walk away. It's your choice. I'm not holding you to it. But we're telling you things that'll change your life. For sure. No doubt. No way it couldn't. Because it's the truth. And there's only one. And it's God himself. Jesus Christ. And that's how you get driven too. If you get driven away from other things. So that brings us to the episode, right? And here's the thing, dude, is that's the case. Because what happens really often is people get driven out of stuff, man. But, I mean, that's biblical as well, right? Doctrinal, scriptural. Yeah, Jesus Christ himself, he was driven out of places, you know, and people were calling him all sorts of names and, yeah, telling him how wrong he was and even calling him evil when he lived a perfect life. And so you want, I mean this in the actual literal phrasing, you want to know who is the actual king, because he's the King of Kings and he's the God of all. So, yes, he is the king of being driven out of things by the world. Yeah, that's God himself. And so what happens is if people don't feel like they belong, right? Because they don't a lot of the time. People don't feel like they belong, dude. And I actually used the phrase in one of these past couple episodes, just from this point back of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I said, it's been so common for me to feel like an outcast in my hometown. And yeah, right? If people don't feel like they belong, though, but they feel like they need to or they should, well, you don't and you shouldn't. Because that phrase that, it's okay, not just a phrase, but that scripture that I say quite a lot here under In the Image Clothing Company, I have up until now. God commands us to be in the world and not of the world, right? We've got our beautiful earth that God created for us. And then on its place, this man-made world. And we're here, right? We're in it, we're around it, but we don't have to be a part of it. And the people who get driven out, and really the people who feel like they are getting driven out from things, like, and if you don't know what that means, just like excluded or pushed away or almost like forced to leave in a way, or you just feel so uncomfortable that you want to leave. That's what I mean by driven out, for some context on what, I really mean with the title of this. Episode 108 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Being driven out drives you closer to Jesus Christ. Because what happens is there's a lot of cliques in the world. There's a lot of posses. There's a lot of groups and a lot of communities and committees, organizations. There's a lot of things, dude. And you can choose to be a part of any one of them. But if they don't want you in there, they're going to kind of let you know, right? And you're going to be pushed away a little bit, or maybe so much so that you got to go put some bandages on because you fell, right? Because they pushed you out physically, right? I mean, seriously, right? I mean it. This is what I mean, though. Being driven out of things, that's good. God is the most rejected of all, and he's the creator of it. And so it's similar to the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Man of Sorrows, where I based it off of that scripture that God himself, Jesus Christ, is the man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And what I said a lot within there is what we're going to talk about a lot within here, very similarly. Yeah, similar is what I mean. I'm just relating this part of it, I guess, is what I'm saying, to that episode. God was always pushed out, and so much so that he got killed, hung on a cross, and beaten and mocked, and all the things. Okay, literally, I mean, all the things, because he suffered all for everyone in their place to atone for our sins, pains and afflictions, heartaches, right? Don't agree with me, don't believe me, right? You don't got to believe nothing, but that's what happened. He's, like I said, literally the king of being driven out. And we're commanded to be like God. So that's what I mean when I say it's similar to the episode titled Man of Sorrows of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, because we're commanded to be like God, and he's sorrowful and acquainted with grief. We're commanded to be like God, and he was driven out. He'd go into a place and try to preach the truth because he is God, and so he is the truth, right? The way, the truth, and the life. That's Jesus Christ, and God himself being just described as he is by himself, because it says I am, because he is the great I am, okay? Yeah, so he was driven out though, right? He'd be telling people exactly how everything was because he designed it, so they didn't get to decide, but he did. The episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, we didn't design it, we can't decide it, right? And a lot of people didn't want to hear it. A lot of people didn't want him around, and all he could do is everything that ever could need to be. Meaning he's perfect, and he has almighty power, meaning zero limits, period. Yet people didn't want him around. Worldly people, worldly places on the earth that he created. And so when we're in situations in life and we feel like we're driven out from things, what that does is draws us closer. And even just in the way of we are living in a lifestyle that resembles more of what God is, right? Because God is, as I just said a minute ago, he is the great I am, meaning he's all. So being driven out by somebody or something or from something puts you in this place where you can start to adopt that understanding of that phrase that I've said here on In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and many people have said many times. When you realize that Jesus Christ is all you have, you'll understand that he's all you need. Because everything comes and goes, like the fat content and the muscle mass, right? Like the big house that burned down, and the fast car that got wrecked, and the girlfriend who dumped you, and the dog who you love so much but only lives about 15 years, and human beings often live 80 to 100 give or take, and some of them 900 plus, right? Scriptures, man, read them. They're true. Don't believe me. But yeah, I mean, things change, right? I mean, we get attached to dogs and we get attached to people in our lives, and yeah, yeah. Anyway, when things do change, though, man, that's when you realize that Jesus Christ is the only thing that doesn't. Because he doesn't. He's the same, yesterday, today, and forever, as he says. And he is who he says he is. And he's perfect. And so you'll hear stories a lot of the time about people who, like, got dumped, for example, which that's, I guess, a slang term. Some people might not quite know what that means. Like, you're in a relationship with somebody, right, man and woman, and the woman breaks up with you, kicks you to the curb, if you will. Or you're in a relationship, man and woman, and the man kicks the girl to the curb. You know? They're just seeing who's a better soccer player, man. If they're in America, the United States. In other parts of the world, they're playing football, though, right? So, kicking each other to the curb, dude. And what happens after that a lot of the time is people's life flourishes. People's lives flourish. And sometimes people just, like, it seems like they've just climbed a ladder, right? And they've ascended. All of a sudden, man, you're like a few more feet off the ground because you're living the higher and holier law, which is what Jesus Christ came to proclaim, to start a revolution and say, hey, the law of Moses is, well, not really dismissed and done away with, but rather fulfilled, right? In his Sermon on the Mount. And all the things that he did. I mean, there's no specific, like, one thing. When we're talking about God himself, it's God. I mean, he's all. And that's what happens, dude, is people get kicked out of stuff, bro. Pushed out. Driven out. Right? And then they put their car in neutral because they're sick of people driving over them, and right? And then you let God take the wheel. And then their life flourishes, man. So that's the thing, is sometimes being driven out from things is actually the best thing that could happen to you. Driven out from people who you once were around a lot, or driven out from some community, or all the other things I mentioned earlier like that, right? Worldly things. It draws you closer to Jesus Christ because, yeah, there's that movie by Disney titled Sing, and the little dude in it who's a koala bear, the main character, he says, the good thing about hitting rock bottom is the only way you can go is up. And yeah, Jesus Christ is the foundation on which our rock is built. Well, not necessarily, because I'm not the one building rocks. He's the rock on which our foundation is built, though. Yes. Right? The wise man built his house upon the rock. The foolish man built their house upon the sand. And so our rock should be at the bottom. And when we get knocked to the bottom because we're driven out of things and now we feel maybe empty, well, Jesus Christ is the one who fills our cup until it runneth over, right? Don't agree with me, dude. Please don't. Don't believe me, dude, but, right? It's literal, dude. The gospel of Jesus Christ. The truth of all things. There's no religion because I'm not religious. I don't believe in anything, so you don't need to either. If I were to be saying, but don't let me tell you what to do. But listen to this, right? Sometimes I'm all over the place. And you know who's ever present? God himself, right? Jesus Christ. I'm trying all that I can do to be like him, and never will I in this life. But that's why he's our Savior and Redeemer, dude. And that's why we need him, bro. So come to church, sis. Because we're all brothers and sisters in the body of Jesus Christ. And that's the thing, is church is the place for the outcasts, right? There's an episode that I just filmed, one of these past ones here, of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Too Righteous for Church. And I had that passion behind it like that, the way that I delivered it. Yeah, church is a place for the people who get driven out from worldly things, and then, there's Jesus Christ, waiting with open arms, standing at the door and knocking and waiting for us to just open it, and then he'll come in and dine with us. He's the one who receives us when everybody else casts us out. Yeah. He's the one whose love for you doesn't change regardless of all those things you don't want to admit, right? Yeah, man. So get driven out by all means and embrace it. Get driven out, dude. Jesus Christ himself was driven like a lamb to the slaughter, as it was prophesied about. He was slain for the sins of the world. Talk about things lining up, dude. Yeah. So thank you. I feel like I need to wrap it up. I feel like that's what this one is, as far as the length of it. It's not about the length or duration of actual, how long you gotta sit here through something. It's about the truth within whatever gets spoken on. Because God's outside of time. He created everything, and so time's something we're governed by as human beings, and he is the one that governs us. And yeah, short and sweet, man. If I were to be saying it, really straight to the point, really hard hitting. I just got back from the church, the physical building of our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints tonight. And so thank you for listening to this. Thank you as a prayer for letting me say this, right? This has been great. Father, I'm not addressing you guys. It's like you let me say something. I want to say whatever I want, no matter who cares or doesn't or tries to, whatever. But sometimes I say some things that I don't really know. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, thank you. Check out In the Image Clothing Company dogs, man. It's gonna be so beautiful. I keep using the word fulfilling. Breeding dogs, standard poodles, standard. Yeah, upholding the standard of the breed as well too, and the best of what I can, dude, is what I will be doing. So, thank you. It's Earth Day. Yeah. I was wondering if my jaw would pop. It didn't. So, yeah, dude. Just know, like I was saying, you get driven out and you get driven closer to Jesus Christ. And then that's when you start to flourish. Okay? It happens and you can see it and that's just how it works. So, yeah. This is one of those things that I try to always do. Check that out, right? Speaking out of personal experience is what I mean. I don't like things, man. I don't like worldly stuff, and I don't like to be a part of things. I usually ask to be left out of things, right? And have the intention to try to be left out of things of the world. And that's where we get the most fulfillment, is following in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, who was, who was and who is. So, thank you. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, all 4 sides. Check out the other 3 sides if you'd like to. I know I've been saying it, man, and I just did about a minute ago. In the Image Clothing Company dogs. A lot's going to change in my personal life, and I'm the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. I'm the one documenting everything for it as of today's date and up until. So, yeah, dogs. Okay. The gratitude for that is just immense that I personally have. So we will have clothing available. I mentioned it earlier, right? If you want to ever purchase it, though, in the Image Clothing Company clothing, just do all that you can to purchase it in your size. That's the point of it. Okay, so thank you. Dog stuff as well when it comes, right? Collars and leashes, natural materials, allowing the dogs to not have to deal with cumbersome things placed onto them. So, yeah, man. Yeah. I just feel like I couldn't do it too much because I couldn't. We could never actually thank a perfect God for anything that he's done. But I really genuinely want to express my gratitude for everything that I've been allowed to do through this and where my life personally is right now. Yeah. Things are taking a turn. Nothing's changing as far as what we do here, but we're going to be welcoming some dogs really soon. And I don't have any kind of date to give, but yeah. Yep. All right. I'll show a lot of things, man. Groomings, feeding, exercise, hydration, keeping dogs natural, okay, in all the ways. And it hits me in such a beautiful way. Okay. We're here to stay, dude, in the Image Clothing Company and all that it is. Yeah. There it is. That was my jaw for those in audio only. And when I say that, you know, we talk about the jaw so much and we will continue to as we do. So there's a lot that's happening, and I'm so grateful for that in itself. The amount of times that my jaw has released like that on In the Image Clothing Company podcast, documented through these episodes that are numbered, that will never be deleted or changed because that's why they're numbered. So they're in order, you know. So we can watch the growth of what all this has been, and me personally, not for my sake, like not for any kind of credit that goes to me, but for the, you know, for showing how valid this information really is. That phrase, the proof is in the pudding, right? This is the pudding, if you will. I mean, look at what's happening here because it's been documented, and I date everything by saying the date verbally in the videos that I make. Every single video, unless I don't, right? I mean, it's my intention too, because it's as real as it gets, as I say. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.